Okay, none of my keyboard keys are working. Yep. Oh, wait, pause worked. But now I can't unpause. And none of the other keys are doing anything. If this was an actual computer and not DOSBox, I'd have to reset it now. So, I've read from a number of sources that today's ancient DOS game, Pinball World, is one of the worst pinball games ever released for home computers. And after playing it for my first time ever this week, I have to say I understand the sentiment, but don't agree with it. Well, not completely. This program is weird because there was genuine effort put into its presentation, and the physics are about on par with other computerized pinball games of the time. See, this is another one of those strange cases where the key fault of the game, over all other considerations, is the design. Pinball World is not built anything like a typical pinball program, and suffers greatly as a result of this. Furthermore, you don't have direct access to any of the game's tables, which means if there's a particular table you enjoy, you have to wade through arbitrary layers of gameplay on extremely awkwardly designed tables to be allowed to play it, as each of the tables in here, which are actually fun to play, are all bonus tables which you access from the world tables, which, quite frankly, are some of the worst designed tables I've ever witnessed. Also, get used to the music you're hearing in the background. Unless you're playing a bonus table, minigame, or are on the table that you select your table from, which is, yeah, a thing in this game, that's the only tune you hear. And every so often when you lose a ball, the music that's playing resets rather than keeps going, but only does that sometimes instead of all the time. Yeah, I should point out that while the coding is good, it's not great, and there's some very weird programming decisions, like that one. Not to mention a handful of bugs with the physics, which don't show up often, but can really break the game when they do. Pinball World was developed by Spidersoft and published through 21st Century Entertainment in 1995. It's a one-player pinball game, despite the fact that the manual alludes to the possibility of multiple players, though I think it's referring to multiple playthroughs and not multiple players, as the manual's English section has some minor language oddities like that. It runs in a 320 by 240 256 color tweaked VGA mode by default, though it can also run in the more standardized 320 by 200 mode if you really need it to. And it also supports a small array of audio cards, all in terms of digitized sound, again using the PC speaker and AdLib in tweaked ways, though it's simplest to just set up Sound Blaster support under DOSBox. As for its current release date, the game's still commercial, and if you want to give it a try for yourself, it can be downloaded from the Good Old Games website at www.gog.com for $6. As for the collectors among you, physical copies are extremely rare, which is unusual for pinball titles coming out in the mid-90s. I only managed to find a single physical copy for sale, and it was priced at $50 for just the CD. So whether that's indicative of its rarity or was just overpriced, I have no idea. Pinball World is not built like your typical pinball game at all. The goal of this thing is to travel a world of pinball tables themed after different parts of the globe, with the ultimate goal being to visit all the locations available and unlock a secret location for your troubles. Before you get started though, you're dropped into the destination select table, where you have to hit a drop target to choose the table to start on, which you'll then jump to when you lose the ball down the drain. I mean, it's kind of weird, but hey, it works. From here, the goal of each table is fairly simple. Spell a particular word to open the exits, then get the ball to an exit to move on to a different table. Once a table's been cleared, you can exit from it as often as you need to without having to play through it again. Needless to say, this is a lot harder to do than it sounds. For starters, let's complain about the controls a little. In Epic Pinball, the left and right nudge keys didn't actually nudge left or right, it just nudged forwards. Here in Pinball World, you don't even get left and right nudge keys. The only nudging you can do is forwards. Furthermore, nudges use points. Every time you nudge, it burns 100 points. If you run out of points, you lose your ball. Lose all 3 balls and the game is over no matter how long you've been playing for. Now, at the start of the game, losing 100 points with each nudge is a big deal, but later on you'll have more than enough points to deal with this. However, you're not going to earn your points on the world tables. The game is actually split up into 3 modes of gameplay: world tables, bonus tables, and mini-games, also referred to as sub-games. The main world tables, like the one you're seeing right now, are incredibly badly designed. I know they were trying to make these tables really elaborate so that they could suffice for the task of connecting all the other world tables together, but the strange angles you're expected to hit the ball at, coupled with bizarre flipper placement and a lack of any real scoring opportunities, just make these tables boring, monotonous, and sometimes extraordinarily difficult. Though I must say, the art direction is extremely good. Not perfect, but well enough that it helps add to the quality of the game considerably. Furthermore, being a game which takes place all across the world, I was expecting to see a bunch of stereotypes, but much to my surprise, the game does a fairly good, albeit not perfect job of avoiding stereotypes with the artwork. Not so much with the audio cues though, as the audio in the game is fairly lacking for the most part, at least as far as the world tables are concerned, and some of their sound cue choices are a little questionable. Now, just to give you an example of where they went with all of this, the Africa table features gold and diamond mining, something that isn't normally associated with that part of the world, even though it is a big thing for there. The Germany table features the Autobahn, a highway where speed limits have historically been absent. And the Amazon table features a temple with a rolling boulder trap. Yeah, as I said, doesn't do a perfect job of dodging stereotypes, but it's better than most such things. However, many of the world tables also have secondary words you can spell to open passages to bonus tables. These bonus tables are far better designed and play much more like you'd expect. Plus, they all have their own unique music instead of having to listen to that same loop for hours on end. The trick with these bonus tables is you get unlimited balls until the timer runs out, at which point, the moment you lose the ball, you go back to the world table you were on previously. The bonus tables would technically have the capacity to elevate this game to stronger levels of enjoyment. However, it's very difficult to get to them, seeing as you have to unlock them through the world tables they're a part of, and even when you do get to them, they all have the exact same lower playfield arrangement of 2 in lanes on both sides, no out lanes, and a center post below the flippers. And you have to get to these bonus tables too, seeing as how they score a heck of a lot better than the world tables. So if you want your points so that you can nudge without worrying about killing yourself, yeah, that's what you gotta do. However, when you do finally unlock the exits on a world table and travel through, you have to go on a trip to reach the next table. Now, sometimes this trip is automated and all you have to do is sit back and watch. However, some trips require you to take control. This either means getting to the end of a fair-sized course in a fairly tight time limit, or in one particular instance, winning a 2-lap race on a fairly simple race course. Either way you slice it though, you can't skip the process. Naturally, you wouldn't expect to be able to skip the mini-games like that, but you can't skip the ones that you can't control either, forcing you to wait through half a minute of travel to get to the next table. Then, when you start playing that table, if the exits are already open from previously being there and you accidentally go back the way you came, yeah, I burned lots of time going back and forth between some places due to the difficulty of getting to the other exits. Losing balls also works a bit unusually. There's 3 ways to lose a ball in this game: exhausting one of the red light ball drains on a level, exhausting your points when nudging, which I've already gone over, or running out of time in a mini-game or coming in last place in the racing mini-game. The red light ball drains on each table have numbers on them which determine how many more times each one can relaunch your ball. The difficulty selection on the main menu only affects these numbers as far as I can tell, giving you half as many ball launches each skill level up from easy. And one last thing to mention is that it is possible to save your game at any moment you want, and you can have a rather impressive number of saves at any one time. So a good thing to do every time you clear a board is trap up, save, then move on. This way, if the next board destroys you after 20 or 30 minutes of trying, you can just back up to a previous save and not have to lose a ball over it. Or you could try playing it straight like I did and end up missing footage of certain tables and minigames. Just saying. This is a case where the design of the game was way off compared to everything else. Going for a traveling mechanic and using pinball as the dressing to that was a pretty unique idea for sure, but one of the things about pinball is that variety is just as important as familiarity. The worst pinball games out there are either the ones which don't feel familiar and are too unusual to be easy to comprehend or play, or the ones which just don't have lots of variety to them. Pinball World is more so the former than the latter. While many of the tables in here are pretty basic, there is a large variety of them. The problem is the only tables which have any level of familiarity are the bonus tables, and even those don't quite play perfectly, yet are buried under all the worst aspects of this program, meaning you can't just go and play those, you have to go through the bad to get to the good. This is a difficult game to recommend to anyone, but I wouldn't call it the worst pinball program out there by far. In fact, I've heard that the Star Trek pinball game made in 1998 was pretty lame. And that's actually impressive, given that the actual Star Trek pinball machines that were made over the years are freaking amazing. Although the game works well enough with the max cycle setting, I recommend a fixed cycles count of 50,000 to keep some odd skipping from happening in the menu system. If you're running a physical copy, you'll probably want to create an ISO and image mount on a DOSBox to get it going, though I've noticed the GOG version works without having to do that, and instead just mounts the game's folder twice, once as the install drive and again as the CD drive, set up to act as a CD-ROM. So that may work with a physical copy if set up right. I don't know, but that's how the GOG version does it. Anywho, that's all for today's episode of Ancient DOS Games. Episode 173 will be next Saturday, and the game I'm covering is actually one that's more tuned with October than September, so long as you're going by its original name and not its latter name. If you think you know a game like that, then be sure to send your guess to adg@pixelships.com, and stay tuned as we only have 3 more regular episodes to go for the year.